So I don't want to make this video too long. Um, this is going to be a continuation of the last video about what was it called? Um, Let me take these earbuds out. Acceptance and the collapse of patriarchy. So, yet again, Captain Solo and I, we went back and forth, went into our pontification chamber, and this was revolving around, just sending, videos pop up, and I sending shit to him, he sent shit to me. And I don't know if you all saw that Matt Walsh video that was in my community tab, where Matt Walsh is a white guy. He goes around and it's just facts. So anyway, he had this interaction with a pediatrician who was into what's it called, gender reassignment. And he basically, and I actually saw it on I think it was on IG or TikTok or something like that. And I was like, oh, let me go find the original clip. So I went on YouTube and I went and looked for the original clip, and I found that clip. Now the clip that I put on YouTube is actually it's him like giving a summary of what is a actual like documentary or something, and he just basically is giving commentary about how nuts this lady was with their exchange. And she did the same thing that woman in Congress did, with the I don't like where this conversation is going, and your choice of words are hostile or something to that effect. And this goes right into what truthfully all this stuff is about. All this, we don't, well, what's really a woman? Well, what's really beauty? See, all these things are things that have been classically defined by men and defined by patriarchy. And what these women are doing is they're pushing back against that. And it to us, it looks nuts, but they've actually figured out patriarchy more than they actually get credit for. Which is, they recognize that, patriarchy is ruled by, how men define things, in terms of, that which has value, that which doesn't. Now, obviously, we know that in Western society, patriarchy has overwhelmingly been defined by, white, heteronormative, cisgendered males, right? And, what I hate about that as a black man is it totally undermines the fact that there are universal concepts. But because patriarchy is about dominance and control, as the women would see it, right? So you end up with a situation where basically all those men that aren't white are, categorically stacked below white men, with white men defining everything. And so patriarchy for a number of people, whether it's black men and their masculinity, or black women and their beauty, or Native Americans or Asians and the way that their masculinity has been attacked, Muslims, and the way that they've been categorized. I mean, you could just go through the groups. Basically, if you ain't a white male on planet Earth, you ain't shit. There's something wrong with you, so to speak. And when you apply gender to that, then you have the hierarchies of gender, or hierarchies of, with white women at the top, and then categorically, every other group, below that, with, undoubtedly, black at the bottom, right? The idea that black people are, a far cry from white people, that we're the antithesis of them, we are their mortal enemies, or, that's just how it's been categorized. And this is where you see, as my Pakistani friend once said, adopted racism, where other groups try to establish or assert their pat on the head from, white society by shitting on black people. But anyway, right, we understand how the whole thing, how the hierarchies work and why people are bitching. Anybody who wants to sit there and say they don't understand, why, these women in particular are bitching, uh, they're just I don't know, they live under a rock or something like that. Now you can look at it from a racial standpoint, or you could look at it from, a gender standpoint, or you could look at it from both. Obviously, what that white woman has a problem with when it comes to white patriarchy is going to be different than what a black woman will have problem with the white patriarchy. It may parallel each other. There may be many things that are very similar, but part of the issue is if we were to have a, beauty contest, a lot of white women, they don't want to be dethroned. It's kind of like, yeah, smash the patriarchy. Again, as I think it was Professor Black Truth who said it, but it's like, yeah, they're fighting over who gets to control white supremacy, but at the end of the day, it will be white supremacy. It will not be the supremacy of any other group. Now, the funny thing is I don't know how you maintain white supremacy without there being a patriarchy, because there's always patriarchies on the horizon ready to, challenge you, right? And so, this is where whether it's the white nationalist or some of these other, white misogynistic groups, as people would say, they're more focused on that. They're more focused on, other groups. Now, the reason I bring up how they do things, because this is one time like where, black folks can really, especially black men, can really just be flies on the wall. Because it's like, motherfucker, this is the shit that you set up. Quiet as it's kept. This is shit that you set up. Like I'm saying, even with a black patriarchy, I don't know what black men would be if they, how we would operate, if it wasn't for, contact with the European. I don't think that it would be as feminist as black feminists say, but I think that there's a lot of things that black men don't trip off of. And, they might be partially right when it comes to, certain things of modern day Western, Negropian, Eurocentric patriarchy, that they're saying that black men are, just being, white imitations of. But then at the same time, there's other things that are universal that they'll try to file in that category. And I'm like, nah, chick, this ain't got nothing to do with black white shit. Like, you don't get to run shit. You're not the one that is responsible for, X, Y, and Z. You're not the one that's going to be charged with, anything that breaks or collapses. And again, they can't fix it. This goes all the way back to the whole log cabin analogy. And then sister that told me, throw them in jail. I was like, what, some black women are in the woods and they burned down the log cabin that a bunch of brothers built. What should we do with them? How do we hold them accountable? And she said, throw them in jail. And I knew immediately. I was like, that's like debtor's prison. That's the fastest way not to get your money. It's like being a single mother and you're with a deadbeat dad and the judge wants to throw him in jail. Well, that's the fastest way to make sure that you don't get child support, because he can't make any money while he's in jail. And throwing women in jail, when what I want them to rebuild the log cabin. But as Captain Solo told me before we even got in the argument years ago, he was like, I'm gonna leave these tools by the door because you will be picking them up. He's like, I'm telling you, they cannot fix what they break. Right? Which only leads me to one extreme conclusion. Right. And even saying this will probably, have the YouTube algorithm gods going crazy and they're trying to file it and say, oh, this is hate speech or whatever. But basically, when it comes to all of this, you're going to have a purge for the rogue males that have been created as a result of all of this goofiness, because there is no order. It's all over the place and it's getting progressively worse. For further evidence, I direct you to the conditions of your black community nearest you. And then the second thing would be to have to oppress women, as the feminists would like to say. And you know what's so fucked up about the whole oppressed women argument, right? It's like, as men in the community, it's like guardrails on a highway, right? Or like, let's say there's like some, like there's like a bend in the road that has like one of those like California cliffs type of thing, right? When you're, driving along the Pacific. I don't know what highway that is, but the one that they always show you in the car commercials, right? And it's like, you got to put some guardrails there, right? It's men's job to put guardrails there. But if you don't put, if you put guardrails there, women will be like, and this is oppression, right? But if you don't put guardrails there, the women will also charge you with, and this woman died and drove off of the cliff because you all are weak and you didn't put guardrails there. It's like, goddamn, I can't win. If I put guardrails there, it's oppression. If I don't put guardrails there and you go flying off the cliff, then it's still my fault because it happened. She died on my watch, right? That'll be the argument. This is the frustrating part about, and being a modern man in the 21st century and trying to, respect, women's, personhood and women's, humanity and their, what's the other word that I'm looking for? Their what do I don't want to say individualism, but respecting, them as people. But we have this whole dynamic of, gender roles that women want to challenge, but since men are much more rational in this regard, we very quickly recognize that all we're ending up with is less control, less power, less say, and the same amount of responsibility. So while women are so charged and trying to focus on, their humanity and them being recognized and all that shit, you would think that for somebody who's truly seeking, a real world, compromise or equality, whatever you want to call it, that they would recognize like, hey, that's not fair to men, but they don't give a shit. And that's why you have a lot of men walking away. And like right now, what you have is and this is how it's going to go, because nothing happens like overnight. It's not going to be like, oh, society is collapsing overnight. Fuck these bitches. And then everybody just takes a time out. That's not what happens. What ends up happening is pretty much what you see right now, where you have, again, the rest of the world is not on what America is on or Western society is on, right? The markets are open. The interracial dating is happening more and more. Like in other words, like despite all the racial bullshit that goes on, like the birth of interracial children is not going down. It's continuously going up, like across the board within all groups. And so what you see, like there's women that are trying to run away from, like, I'm not even saying poverty, like they're trying to run away from the sort of old school way that their communities do things, right? So it's not just, unidirectional, where it's all Western men fleeing to the East or fleeing, to South America or something like that. No, it goes in the other direction. I was watching this video. It was like months ago, but they were talking about how, the problem, we all know that the Asian community has a very low birth rate, namely Korea and Japan, and then China had their stupid one child policy that they're trying to reverse and whatnot. But they've been indoctrinated with Western forms of media and romance and movies, and many of the Japanese women and Korean women, they want their men to court them like that. And their men never traditionally courted them like that. And I mean, this goes back to the Aries Spears joke, where he was talking about how you'll get like Indians and Africans, come here, bitch, come sit next to me. You know what I mean? Like they're just, do you know who I am? my family come from such and such. I have pedigree. Come here, bitch. You know what I mean? And like they legit, like they have no finesse. And this is the thing that's known in America. Like cats joke about this shit. It's not like, some Jamaican trying to be suave and shit, and hey, I pretty young thing, all that shit. No, it ain't no smooth swag shit. And don't get me wrong, a lot of the smooth swag shit comes from the reality of men who have to use their mouth to get what they want because they don't have the resources. So a lot of gain comes from not having resources. Communities that are more, intact and, strongly patriarchal, it's like they're marrying off underage girls. They go off and they marry their first cousins just to keep wealth in the family. That's how serious it is. Like I've said before, the Pakistanis in the UK got major problems with it. They got the highest percentage of birth defects out of any group because they keep going off and marrying their first cousins, followed by Arabs, trying to keep wealth in the community. So for them, marriage has never been about true love and romance. That's not that's ancillary. It's not been the priority, right? But in the West, it's not that way. So I'm saying, when it comes to some of these other women that have been exposed to Western concepts of love and romance, again, it's a two-way street. The men are leaving, they're going over there. The women are, moving in the opposite direction towards the West. Now, how these groups link up, whether people are traveling, visas, whatever it may be, I'm saying that's what's going on. But, currently right now, the whole situation is just it's broken, and we couldn't come up with a solution because this goes back to wrong orientation and belief systems. You can in other words, just having resources or if the black community was more that's not going to fix the shit because it's a belief system now. It's a belief system. Belief systems are that's like trying to get somebody who's Muslim off of Islam. That's like trying to get a Christian off of Christian. No, they believe what they think is correct. They believe what they think is accurate. And the sad part is, the black community is like, oh, it's already fucked up. Look, so what would be the solution? For black men to sit on their hands and let it get fucked up even more? All we would do is be blamed for it. It would, in other words, it's not like the women would come to some sort of, eureka moment and all of a sudden, some common sense would wash over them. Nah, they're not going to, they're going to look at it as some sort of, 300-year timeline of black men, you always been like this, da 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 da, even to young men who were only born in 1998. You know what I'm saying? They're not even old enough to have even done any of the stuff that the women will jump up and grandmothers and mothers will pass down to their daughters and tell them how terrible the men are in the community and whatnot, where you get, women that it's like they raise their sons with their beliefs, and then their sons are incapable of going out here in the world and competing against other men who, again, mileage may vary. You have those that, do have these problems in their community, but to a lesser degree. Then you have those that don't have them at all. And so what you end up with is a situation where, I hate being next to this thing because it's so fucking loud. But anyway, you end up with a situation where basically what should have been corrected a long time ago, and at this point it looks unfixable. I don't want to eliminate hope in people, but it really looks unfixable. Once you get down to now you want to redefine things, and don't get me wrong, certain things, because of white supremacy and all the damage that it's done, yeah, white beauty standards should be challenged, because let white media tell it, white people are the only beautiful people on the planet, and that's all there is to it, and everybody else is just fucking beneath them. That's damaging. That's psychologically damaging to pretty much everybody who's not white. That should be challenged. But the thing is, it's where do you draw the line in what should be challenged and what shouldn't be challenged? How do you act as, this progressive person in the 21st century, right? But yet still maintain and preserve, some of the, the classical ways that family structures have been formed in the past, when you have women that are actively pushing against that. And I think one of the main things that has always been overlooked, and you're just completely ignored, is how, I'm like, again, the interaction between men and women has always been a social contract. And women try to paint the picture that women have had no influence, no power. Men have just these evil, oppressive, slave masters over women. And now you have a younger generation is basically of men that are saying, I no longer want to play this game. You know what I mean? Like women thought that, like, oh, if we push them and we just bitch and we whine and we complain, we're going to get them to basically operate on our terms. And that's not what's happening. What's happening is men are saying, fuck it. They're saying, fuck it. Or they're running around capitalizing on the situation where they can capitalize on the, oh, well, the bitch is going to get lonely. She's going to need some dick. You know what I mean? So they'll sit there and manipulate and pick up artist it and everything else, get some ass, and then be out. But by the same token, even the guys that do want to settle down, you got women that are on some, I just want to settle down, have the baby, and then as soon as I have the baby, and then I got the courts and the legal system behind me, I'm going to divorce his ass, take half, and then I get to run around and do whatever the fuck I want. I've heard women say this shit. I got one literally like in the front of my mind, who, I actually linked her up with another dude because she was traveling, and I said, yo, she's got this girl, she's coming to your city, link up with her, blah 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 blah, show her around, and he did that, and then they got to talking, and basically she was talking about her friend who married a very wealthy man. And she divorced him, took half, and then took the money and then opened up like a chain of coffee shops or some shit like that. And she was lamenting to him about how she wished she would have went off and done the same thing. But see, she was so feminist with it that, she was just running around spraying man repellent. So her other friend was on some finesse type shit, where you didn't know she was on some bullshit until you married her, got with her, and the next thing you know, she's, doing the foo-foo, half, Eddie. I want half. I want what's coming to me, And then this chick, she was on some, I'm going to come in the door, with this, I'm a feminist, I'm a unapologetic, staunch feminist on some Jamila Lemieux type shit. And that was going to attract men. But see, the thing is it did the opposite. Men ran in the other direction. They recognized what she was on. And so she never got the ring. And so she was regretting the fact that, because basically she wants to do the same thing, take half of a man's resources, but she doesn't know how to finesse and keep her attitude in check long enough to get to the goal. So, she, again, with her, it's like, after he reported that back to me, I was like, she said the quiet part out loud, didn't she? He was like, yep, said the quiet part out loud. And it's like, yeah, that, like, you hear shit like that, and that gives you a preview to how some of these women think, and you're just like, man, fuck that. But all this stuff with the, me asking that question the other day about intellectual media and her video, and I'm like, why are all these women advocating for LGBT? Why are all these women on some gay shit? Even if they're not gay themselves, I'm like, why is all this going on? And again, what is the goal of the LGBT and feminism? Smash the patriarchy. Once they smash patriarchy, then they can start really redefining things and getting people to accept it. That's what they think, right? And it also just completely ignores, the outcomes, like how do I want to say this? It ignores, like I talked about in my last video, the fallout. Like, you got the blast radius, and then you got the fallout, which comes days later, right, or weeks later. and they always ignore the fallout. They always, like, example, like, women are like, yes, and I'm gonna raise my son to be respectful of women and this, that, and the third. And then when he's an angry incel that women are into, and he wants to, like, shoot up the place, then these women, or that's for the white boys, but for the black boys, they want to join gangs and engage in street culture hypermasculinity, especially if, the boy is raised in poverty. It goes over their head. They go, see, that's just maleness, and males are just aggressive, and that's why we have to reduce their numbers because men are such a problem, right? But like I said, men are the poison and the antidote, right? We're the poison because it's men that are causing all the violence and things that are going on. Just like they got this guy and this sexual assaulter in New York, I think in Brooklyn, they're looking for. He's riding around on a scooter, sexually assaulting women, right? But who's the one that they're going to charge with the responsibility of finding this creep? Men. You see what I'm saying? But yet there's no balance in terms of it. It's like, yeah, they look at it like, yeah, you because a man did it, yeah, you men do this, and so it's your responsibility as men to solve this. But they don't really even have any respect for men, even when they do that. They just look at it like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do because a male committed the crime, and it should take a male to resolve the crime because that's not on us. Like, it's like a constant gender war mentality, like as though any father in the community wants there to be a sexual predator running around the community when he has daughters, like, or even sons. You know what I'm saying? Like, the shit is just so far gone. But no, that's why that woman was in that video clip trying to redefine shit. What is a woman? And who says that that a woman has to have reproductive organs of a woman? Again, all of this is designed to redefine things to the point where men can no longer, or patriarchy can no longer define things. But it goes into the retarded realm. There's no boundaries. There's no. It's in other words, it's just challenge everything, and it's a very childish way of thinking. And there's many women who think like this because they're just not men. At the end of the day, they don't think about any of the consequences. You know what I mean? Like, they don't think like that shit can get so they can create such a toxic environment, a feminist toxic environment, that men just simply don't want to participate. Right. I mean, it goes back to, Tommy Loren, Tommy Loren up there bitching. Remember when she was bitching, talking about where are the real men, and these men need to step out to she was talking about white men. It ain't nobody on my level and all this other shit. It's like women, they ignore when they create such a toxic environment that men no longer want to participate. Because if we participate, all we're going to be is accused of being oppressors. Right. And then the crazy part is if we don't participate, then, we're somehow shamed into participating because the women aren't getting what they want. Again, women are grown children, and, people want to act like that's the most sexist statement in the world. I'm like, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. These women, they want it all. They're just ripping up the social contract. And, now we're at a point where, we're at odds with one another. Now, what I will say, specific to the black community, we can talk about white supremacy and black men being marginalized, discrimination in the workplace, jobs, opportunities, and all that. We can talk about that. But at the end of the day, the fact remains is that too many black men adjusted to that reality, and they allowed themselves to move into a chick's place, or they allowed themselves to, basically play this subordinate role. And because that went on to the heights that it did in the black community, you're talking about black women who are, 3 to 4 generations in matriarchy and matriarchal thinking and matriarchal mindset. This is why many of today's young men are looking at black women saying to themselves that they're not marriage material. But quiet as is kept, there's a lot of black men out here who are also not marriage material as a result. Again, when it comes to, I noticed that a lot of guys, when I talk about patriarchy, they'll be like, yeah, Pete, yeah, they'll be charged. But once you put a number on, like, if you want to sit there and you want to say, that a woman, like, okay, I'll give you an example. Like, mediocre tutorials, and he's really bad with this. He's bad with this. Kevin was bad with this. When he had that woman that came on the show, I looked her up. Good looking chick, multi-level marketing. I don't really have a lot of respect for multi-level marketing, but hey, you're 24 years old. You're making, whatever, $2 million a year. I mean, she shot down, freaking a man making six figures, because the guy asked her, there was another clip. Guy asked her, could you date a guy making six figures? And she was like, that's $273 a day. Like, please. Yeah, if you making $2 million a year, something like that. She a millionaire, basically, from multi-level marketing. She had a partner. They went into multi-level marketing, which, is basically selling a bunch of, dreams and shit like that. Selling an idea. Yeah, and then take this book or take these knives. Remember cutlery, right? Take these knives and go out there and sell them to other people, and then you sell it. Then they get them to sell it to other people, and then all the money funnels back to her, and that's how she makes her money. So again, I don't really have a whole bunch of respect for that. But what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, you can't change the fact that she's making whatever, $2 million a year. And mediocre tutorials, and Kevin did the same thing. They go up there and they start talking about, well, that's not conducive to a family and all this other bullshit. And I'm like, no, what you need to tell this chick is that, you're in the territory. You need to go out there. You can't date regular dudes. You need to go out there and you need to date ballers. You need to date athletes and entertainers and shit, because that's where your tax bracket is. To sit there and have a conversation with a woman that's 24 years old that's making $2 million or whatever the hell she was making about regular dudes with regular jobs, I'm like, that's just dumb. That's pointless. The other thing that, like, mediocre tutorials and Kevin didn't want to do is to tell, like, when they go up there, and Kevin did it like one time, but they refused to tell. And I've gotten on mediocre tutorials about this in the past. When he was talking about, I bought my house and I spent 2 years and $300,000, it's paid off and everything. And then he followed it up with his arrogant, cocky ass self talking about, let me tell you how I did it and how I made and how I paid off my house. And I'm like, nigga, it's not rocket science. You have a YouTube channel that has 500,000 followers, just about. You're getting Google money from reviewing other people's videos, and people find it entertaining and they watch it. And so you're getting, X amount of $10,000 or whatever, $1,000 a month on top of the engineering job that he had that he eventually quit. I'm like, that's how you made your money. All these people calling in your show talking about, how do I be a baller like you so I can be a high value man? They don't have that sort of ability to generate money like that. So I'm like, why are you even having this conversation? And y'all can look it up yourself, but had that dude living in his mom's basement who was legally fucking blind, and just watching mediocre tutorials, just fumble over his words, trying to figure out, he was talking about taking his $1,200 disability check and investing it in something like Forex or something like that. I'm like, oh my God, man, for real? You really doing this right now? And so what ends up happening is, it's like the guy, they love getting on the women about this shit, slamming the fuck out of them. Well, you don't qualify for a high value man. You don't look good enough. You don't have, we can eliminate all the obvious shit. She's got kids by multiple men. She doesn't have any class or etiquette. We can eliminate all that. But most of it just comes down to the bitch don't look good enough. Okay, you got to be a bad bitch, which is tainted with the expanded light skin universe and exoticals and all that other shit, right? Because the markets have been open for, I'd say, about the past, freaking 20 years, 25 years. So, this new generation just, gets real ridiculous with it. They get into the, what do I need a sister for type of shit. I can go over here because the markets are open, or so they think, or so they feel. But It's like all these brothers online that get in the black manosphere. What I've noticed, what Captain Solo has noticed, is that they'll be quick to sit there and talk about what levels the women are, but then they don't realize that they're in the same boat, that they don't qualify either. You know what I mean? Like where a dude gets off thinking that he can make $40,000 and deserves a bitch that looks like Lori Harvey, you're sadly mistaken. A woman who looks like Lori Harvey knows, or Six the Goddess, let me throw her in there. They know what they can get with their looks. Why would they settle for what you're offering? Why would they settle for that? And so you get a lot of dudes when you go up there and you start slamming the women about what their actual level is. The guys, they'll come in there and they'll start cheering, yeah, you need to get with a regular dude. No. And you need to get with a fat bitch, or you need to get with some unattractive chick, or some chick with fucked up teeth, or some shit like that. That's your level, nigga. And they don't want to hear that shit. And again, like I told you, the monetization has ruined a lot of the real conversation because, again, once you have a channel and you're monetized, you're like the black church. Okay, you don't want to upset your audience. If you're a divestment channel, you can't say anything other than divestment is the way to be. Okay, if you're a black manosphere red pill channel, you can't say anything other than everything is women's fault. If you're a man hating, a black female channel, you can't say anything other than black men are DBR, and that's all there is. You can't say anything. Otherwise, you're just going to get a whole bunch of unsubscribe. I'm taking my money back. We're canceling my Patreon. All that shit because, basically all they want is bias confirmation. All they want is for somebody to tell them what they want to hear and reinforce their beliefs. They don't want their beliefs to be challenged. They want to believe that I can have 4 kids and with 3 different men and be 200-pound plus at 5'3" and still be able to get Russell Wilson with his millions of dollars. Okay, and then the same token with the men. I'm gonna be able to go out here and get some. I'm gonna be able to get Buffy the Body or the chick on 50 Cent's arm, and I can make $35,000 a year, and she's gonna come over and chill in my mama's basement on some Netflix and chill type shit. I'm like, that's not gonna happen. You're smoking crack. So basically, in the end, what you're going to be left with is a bunch of people who think way higher of themselves than what the reality actually is. And they're unwilling to recognize where they actually are. Like it's like you're like a bunch of people that are literally walking around with their heads so big that you can't get it through the door. Neither one of them can get through the door. There's certain people out here, both male and female, that like, hey, that's a bad bitch, or hey, man, that's a handsome, powerful dude, right? And yeah, they can, make a lot of demands because they have the ability to attract, what they want, or they have the ability. They're getting so many offers, they have the ability to attract, just a plethora of people, and then just choose. But not everybody has that ability. Not everybody can do that. And so, a lot of these, whether it's the womansphere or the manosphere, a lot of these, channels are hyping people up, making them think that they're way more capable than what they actually are, and that they can do things that they actually can't, or is very unlikely for them to be able to do. But, in their minds, again, let me throw money at your Patreon, and let me throw money at your, your Cash App and all that other stuff because, I want to be able to, I want you to put out content that makes me feel like I have a shot, even though I'm not even actively doing things to improve myself. I was having that conversation with Cap, just the other day, talking about some of these women, like, whatever. I scroll through IG, man. There's some beautiful fucking women on IG, some beautiful sisters. And I'm gonna tell you, like, the South African sisters, Only thing with them is I wish they would work out. I don't care that they got bald heads or shortcuts and everything. Some of them have phenomenal shapes. And it's like chick, I just wish they would get to like African Americans, not even African American, just American standards of fitness. But even when it comes to African American women, there's so many African American women I see that I'm like, chick, if you worked out, you could be a 10. Even intellectual. Yeah, she got a pretty face. And every people say, oh, she got an OnlyFans. Yeah, I know. She's into burlesque shit. She's out there. Okay. She is open about her sexuality and all this other shit. She's out there. But I'm saying, you know, I hear guys talking about, oh man, she got some titties and everything, but she could tighten it up. Why isn't she maxing it out? And I don't know what this thing is with sisters and not maxing it out, not going to the gym as fitness focused as America has become, especially with Instagram and social media. And I mean, you got to admit, like 50% of fucking IG is fucking people at the gym. And yet, I keep seeing sisters and I'm like, damn, this motherfucker's got pretty in the face, man. This motherfucker is pretty as hell. And then, the body is like, man. And I'm like, why don't you work out, chick? Why don't you go to the gym and lift weights? But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. But see, even that, who says I need to go to the gym, and then, or you get the classic, I'm working out, but I'm not working out for you. And it's like, oh my God, really? And that's the crazy part, right? I'm not working out for you. But then if I don't thirst you, or if I don't give you any attention, you're bitching about the fact that I'm not giving you any attention, or my attention is over the fence or somewhere else. But yet, you're not an object for my eyes to oogle upon. I'm like, really? For real? That's a classic complaint, because women came with that. They sit there and talk about colorism and then turn around and talk about, how they didn't want to be objectified and street harassment and all that other shit. I'm like, oh, here we go. And I'm not saying that, that hollering at a chick or whistling at a chick on the street means that the dude wants to get married. You know what I mean? But or that he's thinking beyond the fuck. But I'm like, you can't no woman can sit there and tell me that she knows who wants to who's serious and who's not, when all the dude is just hollering it. I'm like, take the good with the bad, chick. You're gonna have some dudes that are hollering that are really interested. You're gonna have some dudes that are hollering just because they want to slide. Okay. But these are stupid ass ideas that all of it is a part of the oppression and misogyny of women. And shut up. Because it'll be the same chick that later on will be complaining about not being, objectified, or having some other woman objectified over her. What else? What other things? I'm about to wrap this video up and come to a close. But seriously speaking, they're redefining things intentionally. They know what the meanings are. They know what a woman is. But see, the thing, there's no line. Like, it's just like, smash the patriarchy. Like, how far do you want to take that? Notice they don't want to smash the responsibility, the male responsibilities. They just want to smash the male leadership component. You see? But they don't get into the details of that. They just say smash patriarchy. And then they're bitching about when responsibilities aren't being fulfilled. And, the same thing goes for the women that you will push, these redefining of things. They don't know where the edge is. They don't care where the edge is. And it's the same thing as when, like the black people that have a problem with just fighting for black people's rights exclusively. They always got to bring everybody, a black and brown folk, LGBT, they got to bring everybody else in the room. What about the Syrian refugees? What about the Mexicans at the border, right? They do all that, and the next thing you know, we're at the back of the line. I wish I could find that cartoon. It was a cartoon that literally had Uncle Sam giving out a cake, and it had like it was like gay people were at the front of the line, like white women were at the front of the line. It had like refugees at the front of the line. I mean, it was like every category that you could get. And the black person in the back was like, "Ain't this a bitch?" This shit was hilarious. I wish I could find that cartoon. It was something to that effect. But like, I was like, oh, I was like, I totally get this. It's like, everybody just cutting the line. I'm like, yeah, because these women let them in the space. Until you get some transgender woman talking about, bitch, I'll steal your man. I mean, like, just stupid shit. But I guess the idea is that, you can't. It's very difficult to try to get everybody on board so that you boost your numbers, and then tell people that your issues should be prioritized over theirs. That becomes very difficult. So that's why, the left looks like the rainbow coalition, that it is. And when I say rainbow, I don't mean like just LGBT. I mean like the rainbow, like it includes everybody. And again, the white supremacy is more than willing, to entertain that, because it really does not want to address these serious grievance or the recourse of action against the transgressions that this country has made against black people, the grievances that black people had. They don't want to do that. Like I said, LGBT, the 1 to 3% of the U.S. population, all they want to do is be recognized and, possibly change some other things, but they're not asking for reparations. You see, black people are asking for tangibles. The LGBT community is not asking for tangibles. So, they prioritize them over us. And this is some of the fallout that happens when you don't stay on code as a people. But it's I don't entirely blame the women on this front, because it's like it's just so much has happened. Like the damage that has been done to the black community, even when it comes to black men's colorism or openness to other races and whatnot. I went back and forth with Cap about that, and I was just like, yeah, if the community was never, again, it goes back to what I said about, the things that people value about the black community and street culture and hip hop and ciphers and all that stuff. And I'm like, if the community was intact, there's a lot of stuff that we value right now in the black community that we wouldn't value. We value it because it came out of our conditions of poverty. But if we were never in poverty, then it wouldn't be that way. You would have, for example, way more live instrument bands in the black community, because there'd be more black kids that grew up in the suburbs that had a garage where, they could, set up a band in the garage or in the basement or something like that, as opposed to a kid that lives in an apartment complex. He can't have a drum set in an apartment complex. That's not going to work. But white boys can have drum sets, in the detached garage, in their, but that's behind their house. That's 40 feet behind their house. They can have that. You see what I'm saying? So there's a whole bunch. I mean, even going to freaking, Cap loves to talk about freaking Edsel Ford and, his tinker shop that he had above the garage that was behind the house, because, Detroit always had like these detached garages and shit like that. But the Ford mansion, like, it's like, and Edsel was a hell of an engineer. He designed some serious shit. And, Cap was like, and how the hell would you do that growing up with a single mom in an apartment? He's like, even Christmas doesn't even make any sense. It's like, yeah, Santa Claus goes around and gives presents to all the kids by going down the chimney. Okay, well, you live in Section 8 in an apartment in the projects. How the hell is Santa getting down your non-existent chimney? What is he, coming through the freaking air vents? You see what I'm saying? So, you got to change the story just to make it fit based on your condition, your socioeconomic condition. So what was I saying about? I was tying it into, the women and the pushing. Yeah. So if the community was never, if it was intact and all the bullshit we went through, in the past, collectively as a people, didn't happen. The colorism, as bad as it can get or it can be. And again, the black women's behavior is not doing anything to particularly help them when they double down on their feminism and their belligerence and their resistance and everything else like that. They start to build a reputation of that's how they are. So ideas of femininity don't even get attached to them. But then you also have the visual aspect of the media and all that other stuff, and then the negative roles that are played. All that plays into the minds of the boys. It also plays into the minds of women. And what was I going to say about the about it being things being intact, and you wouldn't have that. Like, I mean, even Cap had to acknowledge, he was like, yeah, he's like, I have to admit, like, shit was not the way that it is now. It was not like that in the 70s. It was not like that. Like, dudes were not sticklers on exotical beauty and all that other shit like they are now. He's like, yeah, there was colorism, but the way that the shit has just gone out of control, in many regards, especially when we look at, hip hop videos, music videos, and this sort of, avenues of media production. He's like, nah, the shit is out of control. Like, he's like, your generation, and not my generation, but he's like, you could even say my generation. Fuck it. My generation, younger, you know what I mean? Like, they have very warped views of African American women. And like I said, all this, goofy shit doesn't help. All of the some of the belief systems, the bad choices, having kids by, men who don't qualify to be fathered, all that is, it just is negative. And I mean, we can talk about, even ways of correcting it, but I mean, I still can't throw a rock without hitting a single mother. It's rare you come across a sister that doesn't have, kids. Most of these divestors that are bitching, that hate black men so much, already have children. That's already been recognized. That they're mad. I'm like, chick, you already have a child. You hate black men. You already have a child by a black. Oh, that's why you hate black men. This isn't some shit like, yes, I recognize before I even dealt with these niggas that it's about, the community and what they haven't built. Bullshit. No, you went out there and you chased swagnificence most of the time, and you got burned and you got left with a baby because the relationship didn't work out. Same bullshit that happened with Kerosene. I'm sorry, I do not believe that Maximi's father was like, yeah, let's go have a kid while we're in college. I don't believe that shit. I believe she made a unilateral decision and went off and did what the fuck she wanted to do. Again, that man only had one child only had one child, that being Maximi, and then Kerosene went off and had freaking 3 more. You know what I'm saying? And then ended up in a divorce. So again, I'm like, you see who's out here making crazy and quirky decisions. We may not be able to see what he's doing, but we've seen her make multiple crazy and quirky decisions. So it's not a far stretch to sit there and say that Kerosene's whole platform was just based off her bitterness at the fact that, she tried to trap a nigga with a baby and it didn't happen. But anyway, but I'm just letting y'all know, like, this is what's happening. I know I said this video is going to be short, but I needed to really lay this shit out, because otherwise it's just not going to be clear, because a lot of this is very abstract. You know what I mean? People be like, what are you talking about? I just think you're pulling bullshit out of your ass. Okay. The receipts are all over the place. They're all over the place. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing a pushback. And again, I don't blame people, because patriarchy, and even, whether you want to call it patriarchy in general, or whether you want to break it down by race or call it white patriarchy, however you want to define it. I'm saying patriarchy across the board is not forgiving of people that don't conform to patriarchy. Even when it comes to men. Again, Kevin has a couple videos where he talked about, you got to get your shit together and you got to have resources and this, that, and the third. And niggas went ballistic. They were freaking the fuck up. Well, Kevin, I think I'm a high value man because I serve the Most High. That's not what a high value man is. To the point that he had to define what a high value man is. You know, having resources for X amount of years. And was he like, he said like over 6 figures for like 5 years, you know, being useful to others, right? Having networks, you know, that other people can tap into. You know, I'm just paraphrasing. I don't know all the details, but I'm saying, you know, these sorts of key things. You can go and find a video of what is a high value man. And Kev, you know, rest his soul. I'm saying he still has, you know, that content up there. You know what I mean? But dudes, niggas was going ballistic. Oh, man, I don't think, man. As soon as you put a dollar amount on it, they were going crazy. But yet they'll be ha and all over the place when you start talking about, you know, telling, you know, a single mother of 4, you know, who had, you know, 3 different baby daddies. When you start telling her about, you know, how she's low value and how, you know, she doesn't qualify for this, that, and the third. All these guys be hee-heeing and ha-haing. And I'm like, yeah, but you were the same dude that was going ballistic when Kev said what a high value man is and you didn't qualify. You went ballistic. And if you don't believe me, you can go over there and you can listen to the show and listen to all the dudes calling in, hella pushing back. I'm like, what's the difference between that and some 300-pound sister talking about, you know, there's some good pussy underneath this gut? You know what I mean? Talking about my cookies is worth it. What's the difference between a dude sitting there pushing back, talking about you can be high value because you serve the Most High, and a chick talking about how she's abstinent, even though she's got 2 children, you know, from a previous marriage, and how she's going to make the next man who's going to take care of her and all her kids and must make 3 times what she makes. She's going to make him wait. What's the difference? We got a lot of delusional people out here on both sides of the gender spectrum. Plain and simple. Both sides of the gender spectrum. Now, you know, I would love to, you know, instill my bias and sit there and say that the women are quackier than the men, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it just as that. You know, because whenever I sit there and I try to give men the benefit of the doubt, you know, there's somebody who comes in the room talking some dumb shit. You know, well, I offer her my fidelity. Like, your fidelity for real? Your fidelity? Like, that shit blows my mind. Like, who the fuck are you? You know, and I don't know why there's some of the dysfunctional people just can't go be together and just be dysfunctional together. But you end up with 2 people that I don't even get how they link up, because these are people that are having babies with each other. They link up, have babies with each other, and they don't really value each other. Black women don't value black men. Black men don't value black women. I'm like, but y'all out here still making babies together. That, you know, again, as somebody who's childless, that shit blows my mind. I'm like, damn, if you self-hating or you know, or on some bullshit, you know, it'd be better off for you to go out there and take that shit somewhere else. But no, y'all bring it right to each other. And will fool with each other, have babies with each other, and think that each other ain't shit. Like, that shit is mind-blowing. But anyway, this is what's going on. I'm going to end this video. You all let me know what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. That's my video. SWP out.